Well, hello. I'd like to take this chance to apologize. I've been taking forever to just update this crap and record things and actually do stuff on this channel. I only have 2 videos up, and it's a little pathetic. So, I'm going to be working very hard to this week, record just everything, at least for this story. And then I'm going to periodically release each chapter, like with a week in between, 4 days, I'm not sure. But I'll figure it out. I'm kind of trying to decide what the best interval is, because I feel like a week is rather long. I think it would drive me crazy if I had to wait a whole week for the next chapter of a book. Also, I'm gonna probably release like smaller chapters together, and I might read some just one-off fan fiction by Nenya, since I haven't really gotten permission from anybody else. I'll have to talk to some people. Yeah, I think that is it. Hopefully, you guys don't all hate me, and I do well. Thanks. I appreciate you watching this video and listening to me rant for a minute and probably like 2 minutes by the time I finish. So thanks. This is Tikal, Chapter 3, Tagan to May, sorry if I butchered that, by Nenya61192. Original story is by Scott Westerfield. And, you guys are awesome. Thanks. Hopefully, I can pronounce some things. Okay, on to the story. Alec, Klopp, and Bovril made it back to Austria in the wee small hours of the next morning. When they arrived at the palace, Alec thanked Klopp and bade him good night, then contemplated sleep himself. As if I'd get any anyways, he thought. Too much had happened. He headed to his study to try and catch up on some of the work he surely missed yesterday. He placed the already snoring Bovril in his Loris-sized bed at the foot of his desk and turned his attention to the fat stack of papers Volger had left for him. He could hardly concentrate on any of it. His mind was too busy thinking about all the things Jasper had told him. It was going to be a long night. It had been Jasper who found him. When Alec didn't turn up the night before, they assumed he was out with Darren. But when he didn't turn up now, the morning of his own wedding, only hours to go, Volger and Jasper went to look for him. They had been walking on the hill above the glen at the back of the house when Jasper spotted a dark, crumpled figure on the ground. "Blisters, Alec," Jasper said as he ran over to him. "Sleeping outside? I know you love it out here, but you're going to be late for your own barking wedding." "He's over here, Count," he hollered to Volger, who was already on his way over with a concerned look in his face. "Alec! Alexander!" Volger tried to shake him awake, and Alec opened his red, bloodshot eyes slowly in response. He shivered from the morning chill. "Barking spiders!" exclaimed Jasper as he knelt and put a hand to Alec's forehead. "He's been out in the cold for too long." "Thank you for pointing out the obvious," the Count couldn't resist saying. "If you run back to the house and get a hot bath going, I'll bring the boy down. Quickly now." "Aye," Jasper agreed. "And I'll tell Darren, too," he called as he ran off. Seeing as how the boy either was too weak or refused to walk, Volger lifted him in his arms. "Don't bother," Alec said, barely above a whisper. Volger looked down at him and stopped. "Alexander, what did you say?" "She's gone," he said as he closed his eyes. He could hear the Count calling his name as he slowly faded out. Alexander woke up as he was placed in the steaming hot bathtub. His eyes were swollen and painful, his throat was so sore it hurt to swallow, and he had a pounding headache the size of Great Britain. Everything hurt. Jasper, Volger, and Ma were all around him. all very somber expressions on their faces. Volger put a warm washcloth over Alec's forehead. "Prince Alexander, it appears that you stayed out all night in the cold, and you are now very ill. Also," Ma interrupted him, "Alec, we can't find Darren," worry deep in her voice. "Do you have any idea where—" Alec looked away from them, in a vain attempt to hide the tears he was holding back. "No, I don't know where she is. She left me last night." Jasper and Ma gasped. Volger looked at Alec sympathetically. "I see," he said, trying to do so as gently as possible. Alec continued. "She said she needed to see the world. I suppose I was holding her back." Jasper wrapped an arm around his mother as she let out a sob. "Foolish girl," she said. "Doesn't she know what she's losing?" "Come on, Ma," Jasper said softly as he led her out of the room. Volger turned to Alec. "Prince Alexander, I suggest you wash up and get some rest. We have much to discuss these next few days." Alec knew exactly what he meant. He was talking about getting Alec onto the throne of Austria-Hungary as emperor. When he had decided to marry Darren, he was going to renounce the throne and live as a commoner. However, that wouldn't be official until he and Darren were legally married, which they obviously weren't yet. It was like Volger to say something like that when Alec was so vulnerable. He knew deep down the man had his best interests at heart. But blisters, couldn't he see it was too soon? "Alexander! Alexander!" Alec woke with a start. His head shot up from his desk, paper sticking to his cheek. He must have been more tired than he thought. And who should be standing there but Count Volger himself? "Good morning, Your Highness," the Count began. "I see you've been working on things I left for you. How did it go yesterday?" Strangely enough, Count Volger had been very placid when Alec told him about the letter he received from Jasper just a week and a half ago. Come to think of it, the man seemed almost interested in it. Still waking up, Alec slowly peeled one of the papers away from his face. "Actually, it went quite well. Before we discuss that, though, could we please get some tea? Isabel," Alec called to the older woman, who had been dusting in the hall outside the door. She had been working for Alec's family as long as Volger had, so she had seen Alec grow up. She was very small, and plump, and French. "Yes, sir. I'll bring you some right away," she said as she scuffled off. She returned shortly with a tray of hot tea and various pastries, including shortbread. Alec had come to the palace one day and wouldn't stop talking about it, so the bakers had tried to recreate it for him. It didn't taste nearly the same, but Alec didn't have the heart to say so. It was so kind of them to try. Usually Bovril ended up eating most of it with no complaints anyway. Alec took a piece and waved it in front of the beastie's nose, who had also just woken up. Its eyes brightened and snatched and ate it under the desk, muttering to itself about munchings and delights. Volger cleared his throat as Alec bit into an apple strudel. "You were saying, Your Highness?" Alec swallowed and stealthily tossed another piece of the Austrian shortbread to Bovril. "Ah, yes," he began. "It went well, considering." Volger raised an eyebrow. "Considering what, if I may ask?" Alec's face sombered. "Mrs. Sharp is dying," he said softly. "I'm sorry, Alexander. I know how much she meant to you," the Count said. Was that a touch of genuine sympathy in Volger's voice? Alec should have gotten more sleep. He was probably hearing things. "Yes, unfortunate indeed," he continued. "They don't know exactly what the matter is, but there might be a chance she could get better. Regardless, she asked me to do something for her." Volger gave him an interested look. "Oh?" Alec paused for a moment. As concerned as he seemed, why was the Count peppering him with questions like this? He decided to answer the question anyways. "She wants me to find Darren." Alec braced himself for the unavoidable glare that was surely coming his way. But instead of a glare, a concerned, earnest look flashed across Volger's sharp features. Darren? But no one knows where she is. Alec was taken aback. Who was this man, and what had he done with the Count? No, but they have a good idea. Someplace in Central America called Guatemala. A city called Tikal, I think. Alec explained to him about the pictures. Volger stood up and walked to the window, facing the city. Alexander, I think you will agree, things have been difficult since you have become emperor. Now that was an understatement. To say Alec loved his job would be very, very far from the truth. The Austrians hated him. They saw him as a young fool, wishy-washy, only turning back to them when he had nothing better to do. He almost never went into the city unless he absolutely had to. The glares and fierce whispers had been too much, and he had spent so much time with Darwinists, the Austrians were staunch clankers. He was trapped in his palace, frustrated. Being perfectly honest, Alec knew he would have been much happier a commoner. But Volger had been right. Would he rather have been a miserable commoner, alone, or the ruler of an empire? At least with the latter he would stay busy. The Count continued. And I know that part of that difficulty has been on my part. True, again, the Count could get very pushy. Alec interrupted. Volger, what is the meaning of this? The Count returned to the desk and sat across from Alec. Your Highness, I think it's simple to see that you haven't been enjoying your past 2 years as Emperor. Alec raised an eyebrow. Is it that obvious? Yes, actually. But the opinion of the people doesn't matter. They've made their feelings clear enough already. Alec, I know you've been miserable since the day Darren left you. Was the Count trying to be sensitive? What? He asked, confused. Your Highness, I will do everything in my power to assist you in finding Darren Sharp. What was wrong with the Count today? Did someone slip something into his tea? Alec gaped. What? When I was going to marry Darren, you fought me practically every step of the way. I know, the Count said. Alexander, Austria-Hungary is a crumbling empire. The people want their own government, and that is out of your control. Talk of revolutions on the streets. Alec remembered the bloody revolution he had taken part of in Istanbul. He remembered the people who participated and their distaste for the Sultan. He gulped. Do the Austrians think of him like that? The Count continued. Austria-Hungary is becoming a dangerous place. I believe I made the wrong choice when I pushed you back onto the throne, and so I wish to apologize. Are you saying it was pointless of me to take the throne? It very well may have been, the Count continued. Alexander, your father and mother wanted you to be emperor, but they cared about your happiness far more. Looking back, if they had the choice, I think they would have chosen Darren for you over your empire. Alec once again gaped. Darren? But she's gone. Volger looked at him, determined and sincere. Then we'll have to find her, won't we?